Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The sound of the whip cracking against skin was louder than the thunder rolling outside, a sickening, wet snap that echoed through the abandoned warehouse. Julian didn't scream. He refused to give the corrupt sector guard, a man named Voss, the satisfaction, biting through his lower lip until the metallic taste of copper flooded his mouth. He hung from his wrists, suspended by rusted chains from a ceiling beam, his toes barely grazing the grimy concrete floor. His back was a canvas of agony, stripes of fire radiating outward with every lash, but his mind wasn't on the pain. It was focused entirely on the small, loose grate in the floorboards 10 feet away. The grate was empty. Good, Julian thought, his vision blurring as Voss grabbed a fistful of his sweat-dampened silver hair and yanked his head back. Run, Leo. Run far away. You're a stubborn one for a nameless Omega. Voss sneered, his breath reeking of stale alcohol and cheap tobacco. He traced the line of Julian's jaw with the handle of the whip. Most of your kind would be begging for mercy by now. Just tell me where you hid the stolen credits, and maybe I'll let you keep your pretty face. I didn't steal anything, Julian rasped, his voice wrecked. I worked for every coin. Liar. Voss signaled to his two subordinates, hulking betas who grinned with sadistic anticipation. He's hiding something. Omegas don't live in Sector 9 looking like this unless they're running from something huge. Maybe a bounty. Voss leaned in close, whispering into Julian's ear. Or maybe you have a pup. I smelled milk and powder on your clothes yesterday. Julian's heart stopped. The terror that spiked in his scent was instantaneous, sweet vanilla turning sour with panic. Voss laughed, pulling back. Gotcha. Find the brat. If the father won't talk, the kid will scream loud enough for both of them. As the betas moved toward the back room, a cold dread seized Julian's chest, colder than the winter draft. But unknown to the guards, the brat wasn't in the back room. 5-year-old Leo, small for his age, but possessing a terrifying intelligence, was already 3 blocks away, his small boots splashing through puddles of neon-reflecting rain, clutching a torn piece of fabric Julian had given him years ago. Leo wasn't running to the police. The police in Sector 9 were owned by men like Voss. Leo was running toward the skyline that pierced the clouds, the Obsidian Spire. He was running to the kings. The Obsidian Spire was a fortress of glass and black steel, the seat of the Triarchy. In this world, power was not held by a single monarch, but by the triplet alphas, Alaric, the absolute authority, Valerius, the shadow strategist, and Cassian, the enforcer of war. They were known as the Cerberus of the state, 3 bodies, 1 ruthless soul. They sat in the high lounge, a room of dark velvet and panoramic windows overlooking the sprawling, rain-slicked city. The atmosphere was stiflingly bored. The council is pushing for a mating ball again, Valerius murmured, swirling an amber liquid in a crystal glass. He was sprawled on a chaise, his sharp features illuminated by the lightning outside. They fear our lineage ends with us. Let them push. Cassian grunted from where he was sharpening a massive broadsword, his shirt discarded, revealing a torso scarred by battles and rippling with lethal muscle. I'll cut the tongue out of the next elder who suggests I bed a shrieking noble for the sake of an heir. Alaric, the eldest by minutes and the center of their gravity, stood by the window. He was dressed in impeccable black formal wear, his aura so dense it felt like physical pressure. We wait, Alaric said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated in the chests of his brothers. We felt the pull 5 years ago. The fated one exists. We do not settle for substitutes. Suddenly, the biometric alarms of the private elevator blared, not a breach alert, but a confused chime indicating a non-threat entry. The heavy doors hissed open. The 3 alphas turned, their predatory instincts instantly dialed to maximum. They expected an assassin, a spy, or a bold council member. Instead, a soaking wet child stumbled onto the plush carpet. The boy was shivering, his oversized coat dripping muddy water onto the pristine floor. He had hair like spun silver and eyes of heterochromia. 1 gold, 1 violet. The silence in the room was absolute. Alaric moved first, not with aggression, but with a sudden, confusing compulsion. The scent hitting them wasn't just rain and mud. It was them. It was the scent of ozone, deep musk, and vanilla. Who let this child in? Cashin growled, though he didn't raise his weapon. He sniffed the air, his pupils dilating. Brother, do you smell that? The boy, Leo, didn't cower. He looked at the three terrifying giants who ruled the world, wiped his nose with a muddy sleeve, and marched up to Alaric. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a damp, crumbled piece of fabric. It was a handkerchief embroidered with the royal crest of the Triarchy, a relic lost 5 years ago during a diplomatic gala. You, Leo said, his voice trembling but loud. You're the king's. Alaric knelt, ignoring the mud staining his trousers. He looked into the boy's eyes that mirrored his own and Valerius's. The biological resonance was violent, an undeniable slam of recognition in their blood. This was not just a child. This was their blood. Who are you, little one? Alaric asked, his voice softer than anyone had ever heard it. Leo, the boy hiccuped, tears finally spilling over. He pointed a shaking finger toward the window, toward the slums of Sector 9. Bad men. They have my dada. They tied him up. They're hurting him. Valerius was off the chaise in a blur of motion, the glass shattering in his grip. Who is hurting him? The man with the snake tattoo. Leo sobbed, grabbing Alaric's lapel. Dada told me to run. He said give this to the kings if I ever got scared. He's bleeding. Please. A low, guttural sound tore from Alaric's throat. It wasn't human. It was the sound of a predator whose territory had been breached and whose mate was being skinned. The air in the room grew heavy, gravity seeming to increase twofold. Cashin, Alaric said. The command was simple. Cashin stood, his eyes glowing a feral red. Sector 9. Level the block, Alaric ordered, lifting Leo into his arms. The boy buried his face in Alaric's neck, the scent of the alpha instantly calming him, a biological imperative. Valerius, prepare the medical wing. Then, bring me the head of anyone who touches what is ours. Voss was tired of the game. The Omega hadn't cracked, and the brat was nowhere to be found. Cut him down, Voss ordered, lighting a cigarette. We'll toss him in the river. If he survives, maybe he'll learn to pay his protection fees. The betas moved to release the chains. Julian slumped to the floor, his legs unable to support him. He lay in the grime, gasping for air, his vision tunneling. I'm sorry, Leo, he thought, darkness encroaching. I failed. The warehouse door didn't open. It exploded. A shock wave of sheer force blasted inward, ripping the corrugated steel off its hinges and sending the two betas flying across the room like ragdolls. They hit the far wall with a bone-shattering crunch and didn't move. Voss spun around, dropping his cigarette. What the hell? Through the swirling dust and rain, 3 figures emerged. The aura radiating from them was suffocating, a physical weight that forced Voss to his knees before they even touched him. It was the crushing pressure of prime alphas, not 1, but 3. Julian, through his haze of pain, lifted his head. He saw the boots, the polished leather, and then, as the lightning flashed, the faces he had run from 5 years ago. The kings. Alaric walked in first, his face a mask of cold fury. Valerius flanked him, holding a silenced pistol with casual grace, while Cashin prowled forward with his broadsword dragging along the concrete, creating a trail of sparks. Why, your majesties? Voss stammered, his bladder failing him. I didn't know. This is a misunderstanding. Cashin didn't speak. He simply moved. One moment he was 10 feet away, the next he had Voss by the throat, lifting him one-handed into the air. You touched him, Cashin whispered, the sound like grinding stones. Wait, Alaric commanded. He stepped over the debris, his eyes locked solely on the broken figure on the floor. Julian, Alaric breathed. Julian flinched as Alaric knelt beside him. Don't. Kill him, Julian whispered, his voice barely audible. Alaric's expression shattered, shifting from rage to agonizing grief. He reached out, his hand hovering over Julian's bloodied back, afraid to cause more pain. Kill him? Julian, look at me. The decree. Julian gasped, his eyes rolling back. You ordered. The purge. Of the Omegas. Valerius stepped closer, his sharp mind piecing it together instantly. We never ordered a purge, he said, his voice ice-cold, directed not at Julian, but at the unseen enemies who had orchestrated this deception. Someone lied to you. Someone made you run to keep us apart. Alaric carefully slid his arms under Julian, lifting him bridal style. The movement caused Julian to cry out, a sound that made all three alphas flinch visibly. We have him, Alaric said to his brothers, pulling Julian against his chest, heedless of the blood soaking his expensive suit. Burn it all. As Alaric carried Julian out into the rain toward the waiting hover transport where a terrified but safe Leo waited, the warehouse behind them erupted in screams. Cassian and Valerius did not offer mercy. They offered a lesson. They moved through the gang with surgical, brutal efficiency. It wasn't a fight, it was an execution. By the time the triplets reunited in the transport, the warehouse was ablaze, a funeral pyre for those who dared touch the queen. Waking up felt like floating in warm clouds. Julian blinked, his senses slowly returning. The smell of antiseptic, lavender, and the heavy, comforting scent of cedar and musk surrounded him. He wasn't in the slums. He was in a bed so large it felt like an island, covered in silk sheets. He tried to sit up, but a gentle hand pushed him back down. Easy, Valerius's voice was soft. He was sitting in a chair beside the bed, reading a datapad. Your back is healing. The nanites need time to repair the tissue. Julian's heart hammered. Leo? Where is? He is sleeping. Alaric's deep voice came from the other side. The High King was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking exhausted. He is in the nesting room attached to this one. Cassian is guarding the door. Neither of them wanted to leave you, but the boy needed rest. Julian collapsed back onto the pillows, tears pricking his eyes. You know, that he is ours? Alaric asked. He reached out, his fingers brushing a stray lock of hair from Julian's forehead. We knew the moment we saw him. The heterochromia. The temper. I thought you would kill us, Julian confessed, the trauma of the last 5 years spilling out. The letter I received. It had the royal seal. It said that a male Omega mate was an abomination to the Triarchy. That I was to be executed upon discovery. Valerius stood up, his face darkening. A forgery. And we have already traced its origin to the High Councilman Vane. He feared that an Omega mate would soften our rule. Valerius's smile was terrifying. He is currently in the dungeons. He will not survive the night. Why didn't you look for me? Julian asked, his voice trembling. We did, Alaric said, his intense gaze locking with Julian's. For 5 years, we tore the kingdom apart. But you vanished. How? Illegal suppressants, Julian whispered. They masked the scent entirely. But they poisoned the blood. Valerius finished, his medical knowledge kicking in. We found traces of heavy toxicity in your system. You were killing yourself to hide from us. The silence that followed was heavy with regret. The triplets, the most powerful beings in the realm, had been outmaneuvered by a bureaucrat, costing them 5 years with their mate and their son. I did it to save Leo, Julian said defiantly. I would do it again. We know, Alaric said, bending down to press a kiss to Julian's forehead. The contact sent a jolt of electricity through Julian's spine, the soulmate bond, dormant but unbroken, roaring back to life. You are strong, Julian. Stronger than any of us. But you will never have to be strong alone again. Cassian entered the room then, looking out of place in the domestic setting with his sheer size. He held a tray of food. The boy woke up. He wants to see his dada. Leo ran in past Cassian's legs, scrambling up onto the bed. Dada! Julian hissed in pain as the mattress shifted, but he pulled his son close, burying his face in the boy's neck. I'm here, baby. I'm okay. The 3 alphas stood around the bed, forming a protective perimeter. The dynamic had shifted irrevocably. The lonely rulers were gone. What happens now? Julian asked, looking up at them. He was a fugitive, a slum dweller, a broke father. Now, Alaric straightened, his voice regaining its command. Now, we announce the return of the consort. We legitimize the heir. And we remind the world why the Triarchy is feared. Alaric leaned down, his lips brushing Julian's ear. And then, we court you. Properly this time. No hiding. No fear. You belong to us, Julian. And we belong to you. Julian looked at the 3 men who had once been his nightmares, now standing as his shield. He looked at Leo, safe and fed. For the first time in 5 years, the knot of fear in his chest uncoiled. Okay, Julian whispered. I'm tired of running. Then rest. Cashin grumbled gently, sitting at the foot of the bed. The wolf is at the door. Nothing gets in. And that is how the vipers found their heart, and the wolf found his pack. If you enjoyed seeing the kings burn the world for their family, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive the triplets for not finding him sooner, even if it wasn't their fault? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt, masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art, for characters, BL, yaoi, man 1. Alaric, tall, black suit, dark hair, authoritative aura, standing protectively, man 2. Valerius, sharp features, glasses, holding a datapad, sitting on chair, intelligent gaze, man 3. Cashin, muscular build, scarred arms, casual shirt, sitting at foot of bed, dangerous but gentle expression, man 4. Julian, silver hair, pale skin, wearing silk pajamas, sitting up in large luxury bed, holding a small boy with heterochromia eyes. Background is a luxurious royal bedroom with rain-hitting panoramic windows, warm ambient lighting, emotional atmosphere, cinematic composition, sharp focus, intricate details.